Hi, welcome to How to Create Your Own Excel Search Part 3. In the last one, I showed you how to look through different columns with your search. And in the first one, I showed you how to create the search itself. So in this one, we're going to talk about relevancy. So we may notice that if we type in AL here, we have ALE, ALB, and ALP. So we weren't really ranking the values before based on relevancy after it found the AL. So what we want to do is alphabetize our data in order to have it sensible in a way that it makes sense to the user. So right now, as you can see, it's ALE and ALB comes up, and the reason it comes up is because of the arbitrary way we did the rank plus Countif. So I hope you enjoy, and without further ado, let's get into it. So as you can see, I actually moved our data back to the Data tab, and the reason I did that was because in the future we're going to create these clickable ones, and that's going to build us tables over here. So right now I'm going to be switching back and forth between the Search and Data tab, and let's go ahead and delete that. And the first thing we need to do is to create our column header. So we're going to have a lookup right here, and to the right of it we're going to have an alphabetized rank. Okay. So for the lookup function, or it's not really going to be a lookup, we're going to use an indirect. So that way we actually, with every lookup and VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP function, it actually slows our workbook down quite a bit because it looks through every item for every function. So it's good to find ways to avoid it, and what we're going to do is use something called the indirect function. So if I type in equals indirect, and I'm going to borrow something that we did from the last one, which was our dynamic column finder, essentially an HLOOKUP for these address functions. We're going to go indirect that, and you have to use the AND manipulator here, and we're going to use row, and we're going to just open and close parentheses. So the row is just going to look at the cell it's in, so it's going to be the exact row. It's going to return the exact row it's in. So if we type that, San Diego comes up, and that actually makes sense because in our search we have city. So let's just change this to first and last. And the first one comes up, which is good. It's exactly what we wanted. So, okay, so we need to copy that down. If we just control copy, go 2 up, paste it. Okay, so you may have noticed a quick little problem. I forgot to make this an absolute reference, so we're going to go F4, put the dollar signs around it. And then a way I like to drag down, now that these formulas are already here, is just double-clicking this. So if I double-click that, it drags down like you would stretch it out, except I don't have to drag it down 1,000 rows, which is pretty nice. Okay, so now that we have our lookup, we're going to create our alphabetizing function, and that is going to use a Countif. So if we go equals 1 plus, and I'll tell you why we have that 1 plus in a little bit. We go Countif. Our range is going to be here to P1004, and we can actually go ahead and make those an absolute range. And our criteria, and this is where it gets interesting, is going to be less than P4. So, okay, so the reason it gave me that error is because if you can't have quotes and then the exact cell reference, you have to use the AND. So I'm going to go less than and P4. Like that. Oops. Okay. So there's my rank for Porsche. Okay, so what this is doing is it's counting all of the values within that range that are less than Portia McFan. And what it considers less than is it uses an ASCII alphabet. So it's not really a rank, it's just saying the value of P is greater than the value of, say, A. So that's what that's doing. And the reason we have the 1 plus is if, let's see what happens if we pull that out. Okay, so the 1 plus just makes it where it doesn't start at 0. So we want it to start at 1 because we're going to pull a similar index like we did before with VLOOKUP starting at 1. So that's why we have the 1 plus in there. So if I drag that down, and if we look for, I think the first name is Aaron because it has 2 A's. See if I can find that. Okay, so there's Aaron right here, and it has the value of 1 by it, so that worked perfectly. That's exactly what we're going to use. So I'm going to go ahead and insert another column here, and I'm just going to create a generic index. I'm not really doing anything too special here. I'm just going 1, 2. That creates a sort of pattern that Excel can understand. I'm going to drag that all the way down. And put it there. Okay, so this is going to be our index, our row index number for, or our lookup value, excuse me, for this VLOOKUP here. So if we go VLOOKUP, I'm going to go number 1. Our table array is going to be P through Q, and that's not the best way to do that either. Doing full column references in your VLOOKUPs makes it a lot slower. But we're not dealing with too much data here, so it's okay to be a little bit lazy. And 2 be our column index number, and false. So if we go there, Aaron. So Aaron is ranked number 1. Pretty cool. Let's paste. We have an alphabetized list of these names based on this function. So I think that's pretty cool. And again, we'd have to do a couple other things if this data was growing, but I'm not going to go into that now. My data is static, but if it was growing, we'd have to create a couple of other ways to do this function, because we'd have to carry the function down. The other things we would use if it was growing would be a table. So whenever you're indexing something and it's growing data, you should probably use a table, because a table will drag that formula down with it. Anyway, let's change this search function. So we're going to undo this indirect, and the reason we're doing that is because we already did it for the other column. So now what we're going to do is just have it look directly at this cell right here. So we don't need to do anything too fancy, and that should work. Okay, so then we're going to go to our search data, and remember how we adjusted this before. We're actually going to change this to a number, and the number we're going to change it to is the number of columns between here and here. So the number of columns would be 18. So if we go back to our search tab and go to these VLOOKUPs, we're just going to change this H4 here to 18. And I'm going to drag that down and hope it worked. Okay, so we're looking through first and last name. We're looking for AL, and AL is Alan, Albert, Alicia, Aline. So we're looking for the third letter. And as you can see, it goes A, B, E, 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 F, 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 I. So if we change our search to A, you can see that the second letter is now in alphabetical order. So it's pulling all of the A's, but now it's in alphabetical order. That's because we're not doing anything different with the rank. The rank is so arbitrarily picking the first one, but the rank is now looking at a list that's alphabetized, and the list will always be alphabetized. It doesn't matter if we pick company or if we pick city, it will always be alphabetized because we use that indirect function. We use that indirect function here, which will always be, so because we use that, it will always be the correct column. So, and now it's always in order. So that's kind of a cool thing. That's about it. So for our next video, we're actually going to go over how to make these clickable, as I mentioned before. We're going to have them click, and you're going to be able to check off a few, and we're going to do cool things with conditional formatting. And we're also going to create a little table here. So I hope you enjoy. Thanks for watching my video.